So welcome to everyone. I don't know what it's like where you are because we're from all different parts of the country, but down here in Devon, I can tell you it is pretty hot, which doesn't suit me too well. But yeah, it's very hot down here. So welcome to our Black Country History Quiz. It's basically a fun night. Those of you that have joined other online meetings will know that we decided to do 5 basically as an experiment to see whether people enjoyed it, and also to try out different things in order to see what people like and what they prefer. So this is the 5th. So this is the last of the series that we decided to do. At the very end of this, if people want to go, that's fine. If not, if you'd like to stay for a few minutes, we'll just get some feedback, perhaps on the night and the other meetings that you might have attended. And we'll be sending questionnaires out as well via email to get feedback, to basically decide what we do with the concept going forwards. It's been something very, very new, the Black Country Society, and dare I say, I think it's been going pretty well. So it's the quiz tonight. I can see from the bottom of my screen that we've still got people joining. So we'll perhaps leave it just for a minute or two to make sure that we've got everyone. The next slide is going to be the just information for the night.
I think what you're seeing are chat messages coming through, Andrew, with people saying what the weather is like in different parts of the world.
Oh, is it? Oh, right.
And basically, England is melting, as far as I can see.
Oh, I can see that. It's very, very tiny print at the bottom of my relatively small screen. I couldn't actually see what it was saying. So yeah, it looks like the fine weather is pretty universal then. But it certainly is hot down here. I've been a little bit fortunate because I do some voluntary work for a local National Trust property called Saltram, which is an absolutely beautiful Georgian mansion with all its original interior. If you ever get the chance to go to Saltram, do. It's a fantastic building. But the rather nice thing about it is it's always cooler on the inside of the building than it is on the outside. So for weather like this, it's absolutely brilliant. I have worked there in the winter though, and in the winter it's the exact opposite. It can be really freezing, but this time of year it's a lovely place to be. Do you think we've got everybody who's going to join us?
I think folk will carry on coming, Andrew. Shall I flick the screen?
Yes, yeah. Oh, there we go. So it's quite simple. I mean, basically, you mark it yourself. And of course, we trust you. We're going to do, well, as you can see on the screen, we've got 30 multiple choice questions, 3 groups of 10. I've written some of the questions. Chris has written some of the questions. George has written some of the questions, and Jack has written some of the questions. And what we'll do is we'll get the people who wrote the questions to curate their sections, and at the end of each group of 10, then we'll go through the answers, and then you can tick off what you've got, and it's simply 1 point for each correct answer. Every now and again, Chris will pop up with a bonus question. So look out for him to get the bonuses. And there are wonderful prizes. The wonderful prizes are Black Country Society produced books. So we've got prizes for first and both second place. And if a tie break is required, then at the end, Chris again will jump in with the necessary tie break questions. Now, if anybody's got any, this is a little bit different from a normal quiz that you might go to, because you don't usually get the chance to do this unless you approach people at the end of the evening. But for each group of 10, if you've got any comments, or if you think any of the questions are unfair, or if you've got a question about any of the questions, put it into chat, and I'll have a look at the end of each group of 10, and then we'll throw it back to whoever wrote the question. So do that if you've got anything you want to comment on in the groups of 10 questions.
Be
So have we
nice.
still got people coming in, Chris?
No, I'm just saying it would be nice if folk can add a little more information to the answers, because the questioners don't have all the information. So if there's anything you want to add, then do feel free to do so.
Yes, indeed. Please do.
No, one bit of housekeeping. I note Jack isn't here. George, are you happy to read through his questions?
Yes.
I can help with the answers, probably.
I'm more than happy to read through them. I don't necessarily know the answers or can give any more context to them, but yeah.
Fine. Anyway, so
if you want to do that, George, I mean, he might have turned up by the time we get to the answers, but we'll have the answers on screen anyway, Chris, won't we? So one of us can do that. Are you happy to just go through the first 10 then, George?
Yeah, you want me to read them myself?
Yes, please. Yeah. If I can.
If you don't mind, that was the original plan. Here we are. Oh, here's well, that was very quickly a view of the wonderful collection of books that you're playing for there. First and second prize.
George.
So
okay, George, over to you. First question.
So question 1. Which Black Country church built around the year 1200 is held by folklore to have been moved from its original intended building site in the Chuckery by fairies? Is it A, St. Matthew's in Walsall, B, St. Michael's, which is now the Victory Centre in Carmer, C, St. Bartholomew's Church in Upper Penn, or D, St. Peter's College at Church in Wolverhampton?
So I hope you've all got pen and paper and all writing down the answer here, and they'll just move through.
Okay, question 2. John and Michael Raven were brothers known for their work in Black Country folklore and as artists in the revival folk scene. But what was the name of their 1960s folk group alongside flautist Derek Craft? Is it A, Jiggity, which I think actually should have a second T, B, the Black Country 3, C, the Black Country Night Out, or D, the Drayman? Okay, and when you've got that one, question 3. The Dudley Canal Tunnel is so small that before engines, boats had to be pushed along by the occupants lying on their back and walking upside down along the tunnel roof. But what was this practice called? Is it A, backing, B, riding, C, pushing, or D, legging? Question 4. Gideon Grove is supposedly the young groom of Stephen Littleton, who was killed upon the capture of the Gunpowder Plot conspirators. But where did this final showdown take place? Was it A, Abbots Bromley, B, Whittington Common, C, Holbeach House, or D, Hagley Hall? And question 5. A popular Black Country insult was to say that people of a certain town were so stupid they would put a pig on the wall to watch the band going by. But which town was it? A, Walsall, B, Wolverhampton, C, Gornal, or D, Dudley?
We're coming on to Jack's now.
Question 6. Which of the following notable individuals did not attend King Edward VI College in Stourbridge? A. Actress Julie Walters. B. Man of letters Samuel Johnson. C. Scientist Maurice Wilkes. Or D. Singer-songwriter Robert Plant. Question 7. Which of the following events in Black Country history happened most recently? A. The Dudley Riots. B. Wolverhampton's designation as a city. C. The closure of Baggerid's Colliery. Or D. The final concert held in Dudley Hippodrome. Question 8. Who wrote the following words about the Black Country? The places I saw had names, but these names were merely so much alliteration. Wolverhampton, Wednesbury, Wednesfield, Willenhall, and Walsall. You could call them all wilderness and have done with it. Was it A. J. B. Priestley, B. Francis Brett Young, C. Charles Dickens, or D. Archie Hill? Question 9. Which of the following bands, all with Black Country roots, was fronted by somebody born in Wolverhampton? Was it A. Corner Shop, B. Slade, C. Led Zeppelin, or D. Thin Lizzy? And question 10. How many miners were killed in the Pelsall Colliery disaster of 1872? Is it A. 2, B. 12, C. 22, or D. 32?
Thank you. Now we come on to the answers. George can talk about his own answers, and Andrew and I can jump in with any of Jack's questions if needs be.
Certainly.
So question 1, the answer is St. Matthew's in Walsall. Originally, they were going to build it elsewhere in the Chuckery, also known as the Churchery. The name's changed over the years, but since then they decided the fairies were unhappy with it, and they moved the stones allegedly from the original site to where St. Matthew's stands now. And that story, I think, comes from C.H. Poole, A History of the County of Stafford. But it's actually not very well known at all. I actually spoke to the priest there recently, and he was totally unaware of it. So if you didn't get that one, you're not in the minority. Don't worry.
I would say some of these questions are quite hard, actually, but it'll be interesting to see the final scores. But I guess the final scores won't be that high. Anyway.
So question 2, John and Michael Raven. They were a member of a few different bands, but the answer is the Black Country 3 alongside flautist Derek Craft. John Raven did go off into the Black Country Night Out show, and Derek Craft went off into 1812. Michael Raven did briefly join the Drayman, but then they separated again very quickly afterwards. So the Black Country 3 was the correct answer. Dudley Canal Tunnel, the way of getting through it was by legging, which was lying on your back and pushing through. So once again, legging.
There we have a picture, of course, of the most recent boats in the Dudley Canal Tunnel.
Question 4, the legend of Gideon Grove, popularized mainly by the Black Country Bugle. But the gunpowder plot conspiracy is a real historical event, and it happened at Holbeach House.
There's a picture of Hull Beach. What I've actually added Hull Beach as it is now, which is all boarded up and looking really sorry for itself.
Until recently, it was a care home, but for whatever reason, it's had to close down. And I think there's a bit of uncertainty of what's going to happen with the building. I do hope they preserve it. And question 5, the answer is Gornal. That's where it was said that people were so stupid that they would put the pig on the wall to watch the band going by, although it was also said about Sedgley at times as well.
Also about places in Manchester as well. I think it was sometimes quite a widely used insult. But it seems to have localised on Gornal, I think.
At the time, Gornal was part of Sedgley. Sedgley was quite a wider area, so that might be where that comes in.
That picture actually is from a postcard that I think originates closer to the Manchester area. It was brought down by some miners who moved into the area. I think it was proven.
There's another similar story from Shropshire as well, with a photograph, which I can't remember at the moment the details of.
Are you thinking about the man who swam the tunnel? Because that's what I'm thinking.
Yes,
the channel.
Yes.
He swam the channel. Yeah,
that's him. Yes,
that's the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Webb. Captain Webb.
That was it.
That's him.
Here on to Jack's.
So yeah, we're on Jack's questions, aren't we?
The answer to this one is A. Julie Walters never went to Stourbridge Grammar School. The other 3 did. And if I just look at the other 3, can you imagine all of those 3 going to the same school? I mean, look at them. The other interesting thing from my perspective is that my wife did the same university course as Maurice Wilkes' daughter. So there's some connection there. And the most recent event, well, I have to take what Jack told me. It was actually Wolverhampton's designation as a city.
Yes, that wasn't so long ago.
Now we come to the first of our bonus questions. So if you want to take part in this, and you'll get an extra point that you can score for yourself, and remember, we're asking for your honesty on this. I'll put the question up on the screen, and it will be the first person, the person who gets the point will be the first person to write the answer in chat. Okay, so get ready on your keyboards. The bonus question is, who did perform the final concert at the Hippodrome? I'm waiting. Does anyone know? Quite hard.
I'm not sure. I don't think I know that one, Chris.
Chris, while we're waiting for them
Ken
to answer
Dodd.
that,
No, sorry, George.
can I just draw your attention to a slight problem here? Is that question 7, Wolverhampton's designation as a city is listed as B, answer B, whereas when you've given the answer, you've said the correct answer is D, Wolverhampton's designation as a city. That could be confusing for people.
Thank you. It is confusing. My fault. It's. Can we have a clue? No. How can I have a clue? I'm trying to think of some of the man's songs. He was blind. Anyone get it? No. Sorry, Emma. No, not Steve Wonder. No, not Ray Charles, not Stevie Wonder. No. Last chance, Peters and Lee. No.
I remember then. That's going back a bit.
Yes, Kate. Kate got it. Roy Orbison. Well done, Kate. We had to dig it out a bit there, but well done to you. Well done. Score yourself an extra point, Kate.
Yeah, well done. I certainly didn't know that.
And these rather wicked words about the Black Country were actually spoken by J.B. Priestley on the left. and the others are on the right. Question 9. Which of the following bands were fronted by someone born in Wolverhampton? I mean, I wouldn't have a clue here. You have to be a little younger than me to know these things. But apparently it's Corner Shop. And I was hoping Jack would be here to say who these names were, but I really can't remember any of them. And question 10, number of miners in the Pelsall Colliery disaster. And the answer was 22C. Now, Andrew, is there anything coming up in chat that...
No, I've been watching. Oh, yes.
Might have to go back before the...
Yeah, somebody said, and it's not come up with a name, it's just come up with K, Brimful of Asher, and was Brimful of Asher was Corner Shop's big hit.
Okay, fine.
Noddy Holder was born in Wolverhampton. But then these are Jack's questions. Unfortunately, we've not got Jack with us, have we?
Going back a bit in the chat,
Marianne says it's a great song. I can't bring it to mind. I probably know it if I hear it, but I can't bring it to mind. And Martin legged through the Dudley Tunnel on a school trip back in 1973. I believe you can still do it. They allow a couple of people on boats to have a go.
Yes, I went through the Dudley Tunnel recently on one of the trust trips, and the guy who was leading us through told the story of how he was asked by a stag party if they could leg the tunnel through, and he said yes, and they were fairly well oiled. And he told them be very careful about a certain section of the tunnel where there's a lot of iron oxide that would stain you. They were not very careful. When they came out, they were covered with iron oxide. And of course, iron oxide doesn't wash off. So this bloke went to his wedding the day after, bright red. So anyway. Ward
Jones has picked up on my comment about Gornal and Sedgley, saying that Gornal was a township of Sedgley, but fiercely independent with lots of exclamation marks. Well, yes, I agree with that, Ward.
Emma, way back, noted there was a pub called the Pig on the Wall, wasn't there?
Yes, for a while, yeah. It was the people who used to run the old mill. They started a pub on the Dudley Road and called it the Pig on the Wall. And I don't believe it lasted more than a few years. A couple of people saying, appears I was wrong, saying that Noddy Holder was a Wolverhampton chap. Perhaps he just lived in Wolverhampton. Marion says she thinks that Noddy was from Willenhall, and Pam Hazelhurst says Noddy Holder was born in Walsall. But what I think is a little bit peculiar, and I was actually there, Noddy Holder was given the freedom of Birmingham. Not quite sure why, but there you go.
Okay, well, thank you all. You're all, thank you for playing the games. You're getting the idea, throwing any information we don't have. And I think that's over to me then, Andrew, for the next 10.
I think it is, Chris, yes.
Yeah. So the next 10. What I've been very conscious of looking at the questions is the questions seem to reflect the age of the question setter. So the first 10 were set by the younger members of the society. We now get on to the older ones, therefore the questions go back a bit more. Sandwell Priory was a small monastery near West Bromwich. To which order of monks did it belong? A. Augustinian, B. Benedictine, C. Dominican, D. Cistercian. Question 12. Before the Norman conquest, Dudley Castle was a possession of Earl Edwin of Mercia, who took possession after the conquest. John de Sutton, Roger de Somery, William Fitzansculf, or Humble Ward? Told you they go back a bit. There have been a number of military battles in the Black Country over the centuries. Which one of these was the earliest? The Battle of Tipton Green, the Battle of Wensfield, the Battle of Stourbridge Heath, or the Siege of Dudley Castle? In the 1820s, question 14, James Foster opened the Shut End Iron Works. To bring in raw material and take away finished products, he and Lord Dudley built the King Swinford Railway. One engine operated on that railway for much of the first 50 years of its life. What was the name of that engine? Agrippa, Agenoria, Agrippina, Anoia? Question 15. In the 1770s, the canal from Birmingham to Wolverhampton was constructed with rather a circuitous route following the contours. This was called the Old Main Line. A new, much straighter route was built in the 1820s, the New Main Line. Who was the engineer for the new canal? James Brindley, Thomas Telford, Josiah Wedgwood, or Thomas Dadford? Question 16. Which of the following Black Country football teams was the earliest to be founded? West Bromwich Albion, Wolverhampton Wanderers, Walsall, or Stourbridge? And another sporting question. Question 17. Which Black Country cricket ground was closed in the 1980s because of major subsidence? Stourbridge, Old Hill, Dudley, or Sandwell Park? An animal used to appear on an old version of the Black Country Society logo. This is question 18. Which of the following was it? The Dudley bug, a fighting cock, a Staffordshire bull terrier, or a racing pigeon? And on to the Dudley bug itself in question 19. When were the fossils of the Dudley bug, Calamini, laid down? 428 million years ago, 526 million years ago, 257 million years ago, or 98 million years ago? Got a 1 in 4 chance there. And the last of my questions, which is actually one I took from Jack. Question 20. James Eaton, who served on HMS Temeri and first relayed Admiral Horatio Nelson's famous signal, "England expects that every man will do his duty," at the Battle of Trafalgar, later lived and died in which Black Country town? Willenhall, West Bromwich, Wednesbury, or Warsaw? Or perhaps one should add Wilderness on the basis of the others. A, Willenhall, B, West Bromwich, C, Wednesbury, D, Warsaw. So, the answers to those. What order of monks were there at Sandwell? They were Benedictine monks, and there's a Benedictine, and you can see the habits of the others on the right. The little picture in the middle is actually Martin Luther, who was an Augustinian monk. So Benedictine. Before the Norman conquest, Dudley Castle was a possession of, just after the Norman conquest, William Fitzansculf, a Norman compatriot of William I. And there are pictures of later lords. I think one of them is Edward Dudley, who did his best to spread the aristocratic gene line amongst the more humble population of the Black Country, and fathered quite a few bastards. Military actions, which is the earliest? And the earliest is, in fact, B, the Battle of Wensfield. All the others were actually Civil War battles in the 1640s. Wensfield was when a Viking army crossed the country and was engaged by a Saxon army in Wensfield, Tetnall, or somewhere around there. And we don't have any pictures of it, but we do have pictures of a reenactment there.
I believe Ethelfreda and her brother fought them off, I think. Can't remember the brother's name.
Sorry, say that again.
So I think her name was Ethelfreda, and her brother.
Oh, I see.
She's well known in Wednesbury.
If it's in that period, her brother was Earl Edwin. Yes. And she was Ethelfreda.
Yes. Yeah.
Lady. No, she was married to Edwin. She was the Lady of Mercia. I think she was.
Yes.
Alfred's daughter or something like
that. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
In the 1820s, what was the name of this loco? And it is B, the Agenoria. The Agenoria shown there in the National Railway Museum. Wasn't there last time I went. There's some talk of it coming down to the Black Country Museum. Agrippa was a particularly nasty king of Israel, biblical king. The one in the middle, whose name I always forget, Agrippina, is sleeping sickness. And Anoia on the right is one of my favorite Terry Pratchett creations. She is the goddess of things that get stuck in kitchen drawers and zip fasteners that don't work. Hence the name Anoia. He did have his way. Question 15, who was the engineer of the new main line? And it was, in fact, Thomas Telford. James Brindley was the engineer of the old main line, and Thomas Dadford was actually the engineer of the Dudley and the Stourbridge canals. Which of the following football teams was the earliest to be founded? West Brom, Wolves, Walsall, or Stourbridge? And the answer there is D, Stourbridge, in 1876. West Brom were founded as West Brom Strollers in 1878. Wolves, as St Luke's Football Club, in 1877. And Walsall, they were refounded, the club as it is now, in 1888 as Walsall Town Swifts, but they were amalgamation of Walsall Town and Walsall Swifts. But it was actually Stourbridge who beat the lot of them. Founded at that time because that's sort of when competitions were just starting. And that brings us to what I think is a really hard bonus question, and you have to be a football nerd to know this one. Bonus question 2. Guess wildly into chat, because I suspect that Not anyone will know this one. What was the original name of the football club now called Stourbridge? No, sorry, Gloria. No, that's their nickname now. Any more attempts? As I say, I think in retrospect, this is too hard. I knew the answer, but then I'm a nerd.
Then you wrote the question.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put you out of your misery. It was actually Stourbridge Standard. Okay. It didn't last that long. Right. No bonus point there. Obviously, an unfair question. Which Black Country cricket ground was closed in the 80s because of major subsidence? And it was, I guess many of you will know this one, Dudley. The sports centre at Dudley, both a cricket ground and a football ground, was closed because of limestone. The ground fell into a limestone cavern.
Yeah.
And I remember both of them. I actually remember watching Worcester win the John Player League at Dudley in 71, I think, something like that. But the other three grounds are still extant. Which was on the Black Country logo? Which animal was it? And the animal was a Staffy, a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. There was some discussion in an email chat about the committee, where they went around the committee, about what is the Black Country animal. And someone said, well, of course, it has to be a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, a Staffy. And one of the committee members said, no, that can't be right, because the Staffy is now the dog of choice of the urban thug. And at which point I had to say, well, I have a dog that's half Staffy. Does that make me half an urban thug, I wonder? And question 19, Dudley bug. Well, if you knew this, if you actually knew it, I congratulate you. It was actually 428 million years ago. And of course, it's an extremely famous fossil that's actually set the tone for a lot of geology. James Eaton, where did he live? He actually lived in B, West Bromwich. That's him there. Now, was there anything in chat or anything that folk want to say in chat?
Can't see anything coming up at the moment. Seeing the picture of the Agenoria reminded me some years back. We were staying in York, it's a bit of a holiday, and I wanted to get a picture of the Agenoria's wheels to use on the front of one of my books, which I did eventually. Went to the York Railway Museum to find it, which, if you've been, it's a big place. I went to the help desk and asked the person there. They never heard of the Agenoria and didn't know where it was, so they went to fetch a supervisor. The supervisor came. The supervisor had never heard of the Agenoria and didn't know where it was, so they suggested I just have a look round. So rather fortunately, I could recognise it, and so got my pictures. So.
There were one or two things earlier on before the bonus question on chat. Ward says the late Andrew Barnett used to take pupils from Red House School in Gornal to visit Holbeach House. And then George says, I don't know which question he was referring to. I know this one because it came up in making my video on Bilston Fairies. What question's that, George?
It was the one about which lord owned Dudley Castle after the Norman conquest.
Okay, fine. Yeah. And then Emma told us about Ethelfleda. Yes, thank you, Emma. I found that round very tough, says Kate. It's my fault. Male bias, says Marion. Right. Marty says, as a male, I did badly, so no. Ha ha. Oh, I flummoxed you all. Okay.
I got none of the football questions because I know nothing about football.
Yeah. Let's see what you do with Andrews. So, Andrew, shall I hand over to you?
Yeah, just one last quick point about the painting that you put up there, which I believe is the Fighting Temeraire. I think that comes up every now and again as Britain's favourite painting. The Fighting Temeraire there on the right, and I believe it was painted. It was being towed along to be destroyed, and the masts had already gone. So the masts were painted in. Am I right in thinking it's Turner, Chris? I'm not an expert on artists. Is it Turner?
I believe it is. I believe it is, but I can't remember. Someone saying something in chat. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. From Emma and Ward. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I think it's on to mine now, isn't it?
Drew, yours. Yeah.
I'm just going to get rid of the chat because it's covering up half of my screen. So I can actually see. Oh, there we are. Okay, question 21. In 1864, which major high street bank opened its very first branch office in Albury? Was it A, Barclays? Was it B, Midland? Was it C, National Provincial? Or was it D, Lloyd's? Question 22. Who was the reigning monarch when Thomas Newcomen erected the world's first practical atmospheric steam engine at Tipton? Was it A, William III? Was it B, Queen Anne? Was it C, George I? Or was it D, George II? Question 23. What type of aerial craft made the Black Country's first powered flight in 1905? A monoplane, B, a biplane, C, a powered airship, D, a single-seat gyrocopter. Question 24. Which famous Black Country sports person was once a member of their school Morris dancing team? Was it A, cricketer Sydney Barnes? Was it B, tennis player Dorothy Round? Was it C, jumper Joe Darby? Or was it D, footballer Duncan Edwards? Question 25. The Aaron Manby was fabricated in Tipton, but what was it? A, first iron steamship to cross the English Channel. B, first iron barge to be floated on the River Severn. C, first practical iron submersible. D, first successful land ship or tank to see service in the First World War. Question 26. Noah Hingley and Sons famously made the anchors and chains for the following White Star Line sister ships, but which one was launched first? Was it A, the Britannic? Was it B, the Titanic? Was it C, the Olympic? Or was it D, the Gigantic? Question 27. Dudley Castle Keep is protected by two cannons, but where did they originate from? A, the Wars of the Roses. B, the English Civil War. C, the Napoleonic Wars. D, the Crimean War. Question 28. John Johnson Shaw of West Bromwich perfected a device to measure what? A, atmospheric pressure. B, longitude. C, wind speed. D, earthquakes. Question 29. What were roving bridges designed to do on the canal network? A, swing a section of road out of the way to allow narrow boats to pass through. B, allow horses hauling narrow boats to swap towpath without unhitching the tow rope. C, lift upwards to allow narrow boats to pass underneath. D, be movable from one temporary location to another. And the last question in our quiz, question 30, Birmingham-based Oscar Deutsch, who founded the Odeon chain, built his first cinema in the Black Country. But where was it? A, Blackheath, B, Bradley, C, Brolly Hill, D, Bilston.
Answers, Andrew.
And on to the answers. So in 1864, which major high street bank opened its very first branch in Albury? Well, it was actually D. It was Lloyd's Bank. Lloyd's had been formed in Birmingham in 1765, and it's believed that they opened their first branch in Albury due to Albright and Wilson, the large chemical factory being in Albury, and needed to do their finances there. I believe the building is still there. It hasn't been a bank for many years, but I think it is still there. The last time I looked at it, it wasn't in very good condition, which is a little bit of a shame. Question 22. Who was the reigning monarch when Thomas Newcomen erected the world's first practical atmospheric steam engine at Tipton? Well, that was in 1712. King George I came to the throne in 1714, but Queen Anne was on the throne from 1702 to 1714. So the answer there is Queen Anne. Question 23. What type of aircraft made the Black Country's first powered flight in 1905? And the answer there is C. It was a powered airship. And it actually took off from one of the famous fetes that they had in Stourbridge at Corbett Hospital. And it was a 75-foot airship called Mellin. And I believe that it actually crashed without injuring the pilot and designer Stanley Spencer on a golf club that was roughly where Russell's Hall Hospital is now. So it got that far, but that was recognised as the very first powered flight. 1903, of course, the Wright brothers, it was a biplane. So question 24. Which famous Black Country sportsperson was once a member of their school Morris dancing team? Well, that was D. That was footballer Duncan Edwards. And
I find that remarkable. He just doesn't compute, you know. But yeah,
it was when he was at the secondary school in Dudley, Wolverhampton Street Secondary School. He was at. And at that time, he was playing for Dudley School's area team, Birmingham, Worcestershire, England school team, and also the Morris dancing team. Yeah, it's a bit unbelievable, that one, isn't it? And the next one, the Aaron Manby was fabricated in Tipton, but what was it? Well, the answer there is A. It was the first iron steamship to cross the English Channel. And there it is. And the Black Country Society did a medallion, commemorative medallion, quite some years ago. And that's a picture of the medallion there. And it was fabricated in Tipton. And it got its name because of the owner and manager of the company, who was Aaron Manby. It was apparently loosely assembled in Tipton, then taken apart again, and then shipped along the canal network to Rotherhithe in London. And then thousands of people turned out to watch its initial sailings up and down the River Thames. I believe many of them turned out to watch it sink, because how could an iron ship with a heavy steam engine in it possibly float? Of course it wouldn't. So they turned out to watch it sink. Well, it didn't sink. And it was in 1822 the first ship to cross the Channel. I believe it ended its life on the running up and down the River Seine, and then very, very sadly was dismantled, which is a great shame. And question 26, Noah Hingley and Sons famously made the anchors and chains for the following White Star Line sister ships. Which one was launched first? A bit of a clue there, which I didn't put in the question, might have been that they were Olympic class ships. So the answer there is C, the Olympic. The Olympic was actually launched in October 1910 and had its maiden voyage in 1911. The famous Titanic was launched in May 1911, maiden voyage, of course, April 1912. And the Britannic was the last one to be launched in February of 1914, made its maiden voyage in December 1915, but it went straight into service as a hospital ship. In case anybody's wondering what the Gigantic is listed there, well, the Gigantic was the original working name for the Britannic. And there's evidence of this in Dudley Archive. They've got some paperwork belonging to Noah Hingley's, and the paperwork refers to the Gigantic. And apparently they decided they would change the name because of what happened to the Titanic. And they thought Gigantic sounded a bit too close to Titanic. So they decided to call it the Britannic instead.
Now that brings us on to the next and last of the bonus questions.
Right.
Now, do get to chat, because there aren't many options to these answers, to the answer. And so somebody's going to get it. The question is, of the Britannic, Titanic and Olympic, which one didn't sink? See who comes first. Okay, Ward got it first. He came in there. It was the Olympic that didn't sink. That was actually decommissioned in the 1930s, I think, Andrew, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
The Britannic was lost as a troop ship, wasn't it?
Yes, all hands saved though.
Yeah,
they got away in the lifeboats.
And there was the story of one wonderful man who was present on all three of them, including
Yes.
some sort of an attack or some sort of near accident on the Olympic.
Yes.
But he survived everything. So yes, the Olympic was the one that saw out its day. So Ward, that's an extra bonus point to you. Well done.
So back to question 27. Dudley Castle Keep is protected by 2 cannons, but where did they originate from? Well, they actually originated, you might think it was perhaps English Civil War, but no, they originated from the Crimean War. And they were basically given to Lord Dudley for support given during the Crimean War. It was quite usual at that time for cannons and ordnance to be passed around. There's an interesting story from 1913 when a group of likely lads managed to fire the 2 cannons over Dudley. You can imagine the horror that caused. Needless to say, after that, the guns were very securely spiked to prevent any such incident happening again. That must have been quite a sight, seeing those guns firing. And question 28, John Johnson Shaw, West Bromwich, perfected a device to measure what? And it was actually earthquakes. And for a while, he was producing earthquake measuring devices in a greenhouse, and he'd got one employee doing it. And his devices were so accurate that they were still in use up until the early 1960s. And I believe he had one set up in his cellar. And if any of the national newspapers wanted any information on an earthquake anywhere in the world, John Johnson Shaw, sitting in West Bromwich, was the man they approached to get the information on strength of earthquake, etc., etc. Quite amazing, really. His machines were called Milne-Shaw seismographs because his design improved greatly on the design that a chap called Milne had already produced, who we met, I believe, on the Isle of Wight. So that's John Johnson Shaw. Question 29. What were roving bridges designed to do on the canal network? Well, they were actually to allow horses hauling narrowboats to swap towpath without unhitching the tow rope. We're going back to a period of time here when the canals were immensely busy. Now, horses obviously would go over a canal bridge if the towpath was switching, and the boat would go underneath. And so they came up with a rather clever design to basically get the horse over the top, turn the horse through 360 degrees so that the horse and the rope goes under the bridge on the other side, the same as the canal boat. No moving parts. There are one or two different designs. The one that Chris found there is a particularly nice one. And that was the purpose of roving bridges. And in the Black Country and the some at Tipton, it was fairly common for the towpath to swap either side of the canal. So well done if you got that one. And the very last question in our quiz. Birmingham-based Oscar Deutsch, who founded the Odeon chain, built his first cinema in the Black Country, but where was it? Well, it was actually in Brawley Hill, very sadly now demolished. If you were thinking that the first Odeon was Perry Bar, well, the first cinema that he called Odeon was in Perry Bar, but his first cinema was actually in Brawley Hill. And the one in Perry Bar, he had to call it a different name to a cinema that had already got the same name in the same area. So the very first one was actually in Brawley Hill. Apparently the Odeon name was suggested by his partner, who I think was called Mel Mendelssohn, who'd been on holiday in Tunisia and saw the Odeon name used and noticed that it had got Oscar Deutsch's initials as the first two letters. Later on, I don't believe it was Mel Mendelssohn who suggested this, but later on, the Odeon name became an acronym, which I think was Oscar Deutsch Entertains Our Nation. So there we are. That's the end of our quiz.
Thank you. Could I ask you now, if you want to write anything in chat, to do so, but next step is to add up honestly your totals. I'm not going to ask you to each give me your total. You'll see how I'll do it in a moment. I just say,
while people are doing that, Chris, there are one or two comments come up on the chat while people are doing that.
There was Emma has said about the bridges. I think they're also called snake bridges.
They've got all sorts of different names. Yeah, they go by lots of different names. Yeah.
Marion said that Andrews was hard as well. Okay.
Sorry, Marion.
Right. On the assumption that you've got your numbers now, if you've got if your score is over 20, could you write your name and could you just write your score in chat if you've got more than 20? No one's coming.
Not seeing anybody yet.
If you've got any more, if you've got 18 or more, write your name. 15 or more.
Well done, Ray.
Ah,
and well done,
Ray.
Emma.
Well done. And Emma. Okay. Could we have? Oh, and Ward has got 15 as well. Ray and Emma, could you give me your scores, please? Oh, Kate. Oh, whoa. Ah, hold
So
on.
there's lots coming in now. Kate with 19.
Kate with 19. Emma, Ray with 18. I think that's fairly clear that Kate got 19. Some of those are really rough guesses, though. It was a bonus question, Kate, that got you that. And
Well done,
secondly,
Kate.
and second was Ray. So well done to you.
Yeah, well done to both of you.
And Emma got 17. Yep, it shows that even people who appear on Radio 3 can't necessarily get the quiz questions right. But I just want to say, actually, Emma, your bit on Radio 3 last night was brilliant. So thank you for that. And everyone have a listen to it if you're not. My mum got 14 and Steve Pottinger got 14. Oh, thank you. Okay. I have got a couple of tie-break questions. It seems a shame to waste them. So let's see. This is for absolutely no prize at all. Let's see who can get these tie-break questions. Tie-break question 1. Who first used the phrase "black by day, red by night" of the Black Country? And I'll expect loads of different spellings here. No, not Johnson, Martin. That's it. Elihu Burritt. A variant spelling there, Emma, but Elihu Burritt was the name. He was the American consul to Birmingham in 1862. Elihu, for those of you who don't know, is a scriptural name, Old Testament name, one of Job's comforters. And the second tie-break question, again, nothing on this at all. Dorothy Winlow Patterson was a member of Christchurch Sisterhood and worked at hospitals in Warsaw. What name was she better known as? Sister Dora. People are getting it.
Gloria, that was quick.
All of you. Okay, well done. Kate, Sister Dora. And that brings us to the prizes. Kate and Ray, I hope you'll accept the prizes. If you don't want to, that's fine. But could you send me your addresses, please, in an email sometime over the next 24 hours, and I'll make sure they get to you. So thank you. Now, what we're going to do now is, for those who wish, and I think it just for those who wish, I don't want to make it necessary for everybody by any means, but for those who wish, we're going to just give you a chance to actually show yourselves or talk, or you continue using chat if you wish, but just to give a bit of feedback for us that would help us as we plan how we move forward in the with the virtual group. So if you don't want to take part, then now is the time for you to leave. I don't want to force anyone out, but if you don't want to take part, then now is the time for you to go. Otherwise, I think we'll just switch George into complete gallery view. So